Come on, Star Wars Andor. If there's one thing you taught us, it's the Empire. Hello, interwebs. I hope you're all doing well. So I just want to have a brief, quick discussion about a show that I really loved, Star Wars Andor. It's honestly my favorite show of last year for numerous different reasons, but not the least of which that it was a very expressly anti-fascist, anti-corporate, very politically didactic show that I absolutely adored for that, while also being entertaining in its own right. And how that show currently has been sort of in the discussion lately while it's gone into filming its season 2 during the midst of the ongoing WGA Writers Guild of America strike. And what that sort of discourse has led into discussions around how we think about, anti-fascist, anti-capitalist, anti-corporate works of art made by capitalism. And it's something that I discussed briefly on my big essay on my main channel around Star Wars Andor, but I think this situation reiterates and underscores what I was saying there even further. And I just wanted to have a discussion about it. So for those of you who don't know, the Writers Guild of America right now is currently on strike against the Hollywood studios because the writers, their contract recently ended and they want to push for better treatment on numerous different levels from the Hollywood system, be it their pay, residuals from streaming services, also AI coming in to the the Hollywood system, and studios clearly wanting to sort of push out a lot of writers and just use AI, which is its own whole discussion that I can and will probably have at some point in the future. So as well as just like the treatment of these things like mini writers rooms, which you can go and look up if you want to like hear more specifics about that. So the Writers Guild of America is going on strike because they want to, call for better treatment, because writers are quite literally the bedrock of any Hollywood studio production and any work of art, really. While the Hollywood studio system is continually wishing to devalue them because they just wish to pump out more and more product and make more and more money. So while the executives and those at the top and the companies themselves continually, earn more and more profits, they continually use this excuse of like, oh, we're going into a recession, to not pay those who actually do the work, who actually are on the ground, like doing all the hard work to make these shows happen. So here on this channel, we support the Writers Guild of America. We support workers fighting for better treatment within this sort of capitalist system. And by the way, I'm also working on currently trying to get some writers on the channel to come on to discuss the strike directly. But they're very, very busy right now for obvious reasons. So we'll see when that happens. But that's going to be my goal, to be able to talk about that a little bit more. But Tony Gilroy, who is the showrunner and lead writer for Star Wars Andor, basically got in a lot of hot water recently because it was announced that he finished all the scripts for the upcoming season 2 of Star Wars Andor before the Writers Guild of America strike happened. But then it was sort of announced that he potentially was still showrunning Star Wars Andor and sort of doing his own sort of producing of the show even after the strike was going on. And the reason that this caused a lot of tension for several reasons, there's currently like a sort of like legal jargon fight going on that I won't get into all the technicals of between studios and the Writers Guild of America about whether or not producing counts as writing and certain elements of writing. Because if you look at the Writers Guild of America contract that they had before this one sort of finished, and the reason that they're going on strike is they had these items listed in the Writers Guild of America contract that said, these things don't get writers credit. Things like producing or changing words. Like, I forget the exact specifics, but there's certain things that list that says in the Writers Guild contract that these things are writing, but they don't get writing credit in the final product. And so big corporations, especially Disney, are using this as like a backdoor way to sort of say, hey, you need to be able to do these things. We're not going to put you in jeopardy for, writing outside of the Writers Guild of America strike, but we will demand that you do these things because, hey, look, the contract says these aren't technically writing. And so Disney themselves sent out a memo to a lot of producers saying, we're not going to put you in jeopardy, quote unquote, but you have to do these things for us or we will halt your pay and things like that. Whereas the Writers Guild of America is saying, like, no, these things are writing, but they just don't get credit. And that's like sort of the distinction there. And so it puts people who are sort of in that sort of middle ground in this sort of tension between choosing what to do, their pay docked or striking, and sort of not doing that work. Ultimately, the side that I side with is that you show solidarity with the writers, the people who need you to stand up, the ones who are fighting to be seen and to be heard, not the system that is continually pushing them down. So regardless of the legal jargon element of it, I would say you always side with the working class, and you fight for them and show solidarity with them. Which is why Tony Gilroy got in trouble specifically, because he was a showrunner that was going on set and potentially still doing work. And again, this is allegedly because there's been some like updates on the timeline here. And I mean, I can talk about this quite literally directly from my own personal experience. As many of you know, I am currently working on a film with my friend Dr. Aaron McDonald, who's my producer, called Identities for Nebula. And it's a non-union, non-WGA production. At very least, we are using SAG actors and doing a union production that way. But it is a non-WGA production because, you know, I'm the only writer on it and I'm non-union, so the production's moving forward. But right now, I have finished the script. You know, I have finished writing it, and right now we're going into, like, working on the sets and, you know, getting rehearsals with the actors and all of that jazz. And as I have been doing that work, you know, I am still making creative choices, writing choices, even though they are coming down to like practical matters. Like I am thinking about costumes, and there are elements of storytelling that I want to have be done within the costume design and how the costumes change. And so talking with, you know, my creatives, my art department about that, about what I want to do, that's a creative writing choice. That is not me sitting down and writing at a typewriter, but it is a creative choice that I am making that is about the storytelling. And then on top of that too, you know, I haven't had my first rehearsals with our actors yet, but one of the things I know I'm going to be doing is once I, you know, have a cast read and I hear the actors, you know, saying the lines and things like that, and this would fall under WGA stuff, but it is sort of something to think about in these productions, is that like, I am going to, once I hear the actors say my lines and talk with them and do rehearsals with them, going to probably change the script here and there to be able to accommodate what those actors are bringing to the role, you know, have the script fit their voice a little bit more, whether it be, you know, changing a line here or there, or changing lines completely, removing lines, adding lines. That would fall under WGA stuff, but that is a necessary part of the creative process. So if Star Wars Andor went into production right now and, you know, just had to follow Tony Gilroy's scripts to the letter, it would do a lot of disservice to what the actors and other creatives on that show could do, because the scripts won't reflect what these actors can bring to the role specifically. Now, you know, Diego Luna, freaking fantastic. Everyone on that cast was fantastic. I'm sure they do amazing with the scripts, but it would lessen the product in some way. It would lessen the work of art in some way. And so, you know, it's a detriment to it, even for the production to go forward without even any elements of, you know, producing and writing abilities, even if the scripts are all done. So it's just something to even think about, that it makes a lesser work of art, and how Disney just wants to like, just get it out, just get it out. And how they don't really care about what the art's quality is. They just want the art there so they can sell it. And so a lot of people called Gilroy out, specifically online. In fact, there was a writer called Abdul Saeed who wrote for Disney's Onyx Collective's Deli Boys, calling out Tony Gilroy as a scab, which is one of the worst things you can call someone during a strike. And understandably so, it's a horrible thing to do, to scab. And this is made even more egregious considering that this was about Star Wars Andor, which, as I said earlier in this video, Andor was about literally fighting back against capitalism, fascism, and all of these systems that sort of press workers into just being cogs for a machine. Quite literally, my favorite episodes of Star Wars Andor showcased a sort of pseudo-workers' revolution with them, with these prisoners who have been forced to work in a prison camp to death, quite literally rising up and fighting against their oppressors and escaping. That was quite literally what my favorite episodes of that show were about. I adored those episodes, and so it was ironic in a sad way that Star Wars Andor, of all shows, which is very expressly about these issues, was the show that was having a showrunner being accused of scabbing at this time. Now, ultimately, at the end of the day, Gilroy has come out and said that that was not the case, and it might be some sort of like, just like trying to play a little like bait and switch, but I'll sort of trust him on his word at this point, where he said that he turned in all the scripts during the, before the writer's strike happened, and that he went into a meeting as a showrunner and said, I am not going to be doing any producing work. And from what I last heard, that means that Star Wars Andor is going to be shutting down production, which is great. That is not only great for showing solidarity for writers, but also means that, you know, when Star Wars Andor does hopefully start production when the writer's strike is over, that means, you know, the creators behind it will be able to be there and continually to make it work and be better and be the show that I want it to be, because it is one of my favorite shows out there right now for all the things that it is saying. But Now that that has all been sort of discussed, what this leads me to at the end of this is discussion again on what this means when we have these works of art, like Star Wars Andor, that are meant to like showcase us these issues that I've been discussing all of here, but that the fact that they're made by these big corporations that ultimately do not care about the values of their own art that they are pumping out, but just wish to use that art in order to make more money for their machine. And it goes to what I said in my initial video on Star Wars Andor. While Star Wars Andor can be super inspiring, super important for us to be able to understand and articulate and see representations of how to actually do anti-fascist action, what that means emotionally, because one of the things I love about Star Wars Andor is it showed that it is not always clean and pretty to be able to fight these systems. People die. People have to make hard choices. People are traumatized. It is very clear about that fact. And so we need that art out there to show us what that means, to give us the words to discuss it, to feel inspired to do it. But what we cannot do is allow that art to be the end goal, the end praxis in and of itself. Ultimately, it is entertainment. It is meant to be there to get you to understand these issues, to be able to have the language, both emotionally and verbally, to discuss these issues. But what it shouldn't stop you from doing is saying, like, I've watched Star Wars Andor, I have now fought the good fight. No, what it should do is saying, oh, I now understand these issues, now I go out and actually do these things. Now I go out and actually support the writers on strike. Now I actually go and try and do, like, things in my local area to try to, you know, push for reform or push for tearing down this system that oppresses us all in whatever way that you wish to do it. I would actually really recommend FD Signifier released a recent video on the real conservatives in the black community, and I would highly recommend that video for numerous reasons, but at the end, FD literally talked about these same issues, that like his work is a piece of entertainment, and it is meant to help you understand the issues, but not be the end catharsis, not be the end of what you do out here in the world in terms of fighting these things. So when we talk about Star Wars Andor, even my content is that as well, is like, I am ultimately here to try to give you the words, give you the emotions around these issues, and also sort of represent for myself, me understanding and coming to understand these issues, because I try to like showcase my learning journey in my videos. But what I can't do is get you directly to go and do these things. That has to be on you. So while ultimately all these things, Andor, you know, FD Signifier stuff, my stuff, all these other, you know, YouTubers in this community that we discuss, what we can do is provide you those words, but we cannot be your end point. You need to go out and do more. Because ultimately, we're all creators working within a system. I am on YouTube. It is a corporate enterprise. It monetizes my content, and it will feed my content in the way that, you know, it sees best through the algorithm to pump out to an audience that will give them the most money and most ad revenue. That's ultimately how it works, and it sucks, but it's why I have to ultimately be understanding of the fact that, like, what I am is ultimately an entertainer. I hope a very more valuable entertainer than some in terms of, you know, what I try to get you to think about. But at the end of the day, that is what I am. And I would just continually push you to then go out and do things especially in your local area. I'm not saying you go out and, you know, you fight the system and, you know, like say, and go and like fight the real fight right now. We do need people to do that. And I am certainly willing to do that and show up for that. But, you know, in your everyday right now, there are small things that you can do that really mean a lot. And that's what you should be focusing on and pushing for, and allow works of art like Star Wars Andor to do for you, to help you, inspire you to do, rather than sort of being like, I did the work by signing up for Disney Plus and watching Star Wars Andor. And like I said, I am trying to, you know, get some writers on this channel to do a few interviews about the writer's strike. But I'll end there, and I hope you all, my friends, live long and prosper.